And today we're diving into the world of centaurs.
Half human, half horse. They're fascinating.
Yeah, you see them everywhere, from ancient art to like modern movies.
It's interesting, right? Ancient Greece, all about logic and reason, but then bam, you've got these wild, untamed centaurs running around.
It's that mix of like human intellect and raw animal power always gets me.
Totally. And then there's the whole origin story thing, adds to the mystique.
Okay, so one version, they come from Ixion, this king who maybe got a little too close to the goddess Hera.
And Nephili, a cloud looking like Hera. Classic Greek myth, right? Trickery, gods messing around.
Zeus couldn't resist getting involved.
Naturally. Things get a bit, shall we say, cloudy.
Uh-huh. Okay, but there's another origin story too, right? Something about a guy named Centaurus.
Yeah, Centaurus is key. He was either the son of Ixion and Nephili, keeping that whole messy family tree going, or, some say, the son of Apollo and a nymph.
So born from a king's messed up situation or a more official divine union. Either way, centaurs seem to have this built-in tension.
Exactly, and it plays out in how they're portrayed. Are they wild and out of control, or can they be wise, even reasonable?
Well, if their most famous story is anything to go by, not exactly known for holding back.
The Centauromachy? Oh yeah, big battle. Centaurs versus the Lapis.
And get this, they were cousins.
Classic civilization versus barbarity story. Lapis is all about order, rules, and centaurs, well, instincts take over.
And what starts this whole epic showdown? A wedding.
Couldn't handle their drinks, tried to kidnap the bride, Hippodamia, and some other women too. Talk about a reception gone wrong.
Luckily, the hero Theseus steps in, helps restore order.
It's a big deal, this battle. Depicted on the Parthenon even inspired Michelangelo. Wild, half-horse creatures, immortalized in marble.
Speaks to how powerful that image is, lasting across time. But hold on, not all centaurs fit that savage stereotype, right?
Yeah, exactly. Chiron, he's the exception that proves the rule. Wise teacher, healer, mentor to heroes like Achilles, totally flips the script.
Now that's a role model. Even with those wild instincts, you can choose a different path.
And it's that choice, rising above your nature, that makes Chiron so interesting. He shows the potential for wisdom even in the most untamed beings.
But gotta mention some of the less virtuous centaurs, like Nessus tried to trick Heracles, leading to his death.
Nessus, he's the danger hiding beneath the surface. Even centaurs who seem helpful can have their own agendas.
And then there's Silurus and Hylanome. So in love, but it ends tragically. Hylanome takes her own life after Silurus is killed in the Centauromachy.
Adds another layer, right? Not just mindless beasts capable of deep emotion, love, loss amidst the chaos.
It's amazing how many different personalities and stories are tied to centaurs. There's so much more than just one archetype. They really cover the full spectrum of human experience.
Totally. Wildness, wisdom, good and bad. It's like they're forcing us to confront those same contradictions within ourselves.
And speaking of contradictions, early Greek myths rarely mention female centaurs. Then, boom, they show up later in mosaics and poetry. Why the change?
Interesting question. Maybe it reflects changing views in ancient Greece. Greater recognition of women, their power.
So the idea of just a male creature embodying both the animal and human, maybe it felt incomplete.
Possibly, as society changed, so did the myth.
Okay, so we've got their origins, that infamous battle, all these different personalities. But where did the idea for the centaur come from in the first place?
One theory, it's all about real-world encounters. Imagine a time before horses were common. Suddenly you see these nomads riding in.
Whoa, yeah, I can see how that would be a shock.
Right. To someone who's never seen a horse, it'd be like one creature, this human-animal hybrid.
And that initial awe, maybe even fear, could spark the whole myth.
The power of imagination, taking something real and turning it into a story that helps us understand the world.
So a simple misunderstanding could lead to such a lasting and powerful image. Sometimes the most fantastical creatures come from the most ordinary encounters.
So we were talking about how that image of the centaur might have come about, those cultural encounters.
Yeah, those nomads on horseback appearing as these mythical beings. Makes you think how powerful those first impressions can be.
For sure, how myths and legends can come from real-world things, but then get transformed through, well, imagination.
Like a giant game of telephone through history. But even in those early Greek myths, centaurs aren't just wild. There's this capacity for wisdom too, right?
Absolutely. Chiron's the best example, but even some of the more rowdy ones like Pholus, you see intelligence, even hospitality.
Right, Pholus, he welcomes Heracles into his cave, offers him wine, but then other centaurs show up.
Drawn by the smell, things get out of hand.
It's like that inner conflict again, primal instincts versus wanting connection, even civility.
Exactly.
Makes me think we can't talk centaurs without Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, all that.
Interestingly, Dionysus, like centaurs, represents this untamed energy pushing against societal norms.
And then centaurs were in those Dionysian processions, rituals, all about liberation, right?
It's almost as if they embodied that raw power Dionysus unleashed, like a living, breathing representation of it.
So we've got these beings who are inherently conflicted, rational and irrational, civilized but wild, tied to gods, fighting epic battles. It makes you think about what it means to be human. Where do we even go from here?
And this is where things get even more interesting. We've been focused on Greece, but the centaur story, it doesn't end there. It travels through time, across cultures, takes on new meanings.
Wait, there's more. I'm all ears.
Think about it, that image, half human, half horse, it taps into something deep, our collective psyche. So it's not surprising it pops up elsewhere, too.
So beyond Greece, other civilizations had their own versions of the centaur.
Oh, yeah. India, for example, there's the Kinnara, also depicted as a horse with a human upper body.
So not just a Greek thing then. This human-horse combo, it seemed to speak to people all over.
It shows how universal some myths are, these archetypes. The centaur, blending human and animal, says something about our relationship with nature itself.
Reminds me of those Pictish stones you mentioned before, found in Scotland, right? Long way from Greece.
Exactly. And those images, while influenced by classical art, they show how different cultures adapted the centaur, made it their own.
Like the myth took on a life of its own, changing as it spread.
And that evolution continued even into the Middle Ages. Remember that story of St. Anthony encountering a centaur? From the life of St. Anthony the Great, super popular back then.
Oh yeah, the centaur challenges him, but then admits the old gods are gone.
Shows how they got woven into Christian stories, became symbols of paganism, the old ways.
But even though they represent that, they still hold a certain power, a fascination.
And that carries into modern times. Centaurs in literature, art, film, everywhere.
Oh yeah, can't forget about Narnia or Harry Potter. Those centaurs are iconic.
And those examples, there are tons more, they show how centaurs continue to inspire.
But they're not just there for visual flair, right? It's like whenever a centaur shows up in a modern story, there's this weight to it, all that history, the contradictions.
Exactly. They're not just cool-looking creatures. They become a way to explore deeper stuff. Human nature, our connection to nature, even clashes between different belief systems.
So these half-horse, half-human beings, they become these incredibly rich symbols, carrying thousands of years of stories, different interpretations, philosophical ideas.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. From those early encounters with nomads on horseback to modern fantasy novels, the centaur has really endured.
Makes you wonder why this particular image has stuck with us for so long.
I think it goes back to that duality we talked about. The centaur embodies both sides, our animal and human parts, the wild and the rational.
Like they hold up a mirror to us, those internal struggles we all have. Our desire for order, but also that urge for freedom, to let loose.
Exactly. They represent both the light and shadow within us all.
And that's what makes them so fascinating to explore. So, centaurs, definitely more than just guys who like to party. They really make you think about what it means to be human.
Right. Blurring those lines, man and beast, reason and instinct. It's that paradox I think we all kind of deal with it in our own way.
Yeah, you feel pulled in different directions. One minute you want to just let loose, embrace that wild side, but then there's that voice saying, hey, be sensible.
Like we've all got a little bit of centaur in us, that struggle between our better selves and, well, the not so much.
And the fact that this myth has lasted for so long, it makes you think that struggle is just part of being human, right?
A timeless theme for sure, and that's probably why they still resonate with us, whether it's an ancient myth or, like you said, a modern fantasy novel.
It's kind of wild how a creature that's half horse, half human, can make you think so much about yourself.
That's the thing about myths. They give us a way to explore those big ideas, connect with something bigger than ourselves.
So, as we wrap up our centaur journey, anything you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I'd say, remember this. The centaur is more than just a mythical creature. It's like a reflection of us.
So next time you see one, in a book, a movie, maybe even a dream, it's not just some fantasy. You're seeing a bit of yourself in there.
And maybe by understanding them, we can understand our own complexities a little better.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for taking us on this centaur adventure. It's been fascinating.